kind of nice, though, because if you get anything stuck in your teeth, you have a pick built into the food itself. So,
like this Bitcoin stuff is that, yeah, the traceability is great, but because of its decentralized nature, it wasn't one entity, one organization that had control over it, like governments do with their nation's currency. But if you start to get into this point where, you know, probably states are holding on to massive amounts of it, now they are starting to have control of it again.
I should wear my hoodie. Oh, I've got it right here. Hang on.
We cut the bit just before you said, "Oh, I've got a hoodie," and he's just gonna edit it back, and he's just gonna be wearing a different hoodie.
It's a manatee, so there's like, it's mighty, man.
You're also not taking into consideration the economic impact that everybody suddenly switching to a single currency would have, and we've got examples of that happening in the past with the euro, and it's not always net good.
It's these wrinkles. That means you're wise, you know?
Don't they call those crow's feet?
Yeah. At least I've heard that as well.
I thought that's what you ate if you said something stupid.
Do you know, I once went to Dominican Republic, and I never before in my life had I seen people eat chicken feet. And there, I went to somebody's house, and they brought out a bowl of fried chicken feet, and I was like, I'm sure this is lovely. I'm sure a lot of people here are going to enjoy this. I don't think I'm going to partake of the chicken feet. Yeah. Have either of you ever had chicken feet?
No.
So I have a funny story. No. I don't know how inside jokey it is, but 2019, right before the pandemic started, in November, my sister from New York, so that's like a 13-hour trip, her and her son drove down and met me in Raleigh, which is about a 3-hour drive for me, to go to a Tool show, our first ever Tool concert. And we got an Airbnb. And the night before the show, there was now, like, I see him more and more. I don't know if it's my algorithm or whatever, but Pete Holmes, which I've been watching for like 10 years. He's a stand-up comedian. He's really funny. He was performing in Raleigh, and so we went to that. And right before that, we just saw some Chinese restaurant. So we went and stopped at some Chinese restaurant. It was all-you-can-eat buffet kind of setup. I don't think my diet would allow me to go to something like that these days, but in the moment, after a couple beers, it was all right. But they had, they called it Phoenix talons. These were fried chicken feet, and my sister dared me, and I'm like, I'll do it if you do it.
That sounds so hardcore.
Right? So we had, I never had chicken feet, but I've had eagle's talons. I had a half of a bite, and that was all that It's kind of nice, though, because if you get anything stuck in your teeth, you have a pick built into the food itself. So. Tool was awesome,
if you see a small rodent running by, you can just like...
just javelin, throw it at it.
Oh, my God.
Yep. So.
You're coming with me, buddy.
Yeah. I can't say I've tried any, like, super out there foods like that before. I've had alligator tail.
You don't strike me as the kind of guy, though.
Yeah.
You did say last week or the week before you're quite picky about food.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is okay. It's acceptable.
I would potentially try certain things, but like little critters, I know, like I don't know, insects and stuff are like a cuisine in certain cultures, and I
have this philosophy I'm not eating on life. It's like,
go for it.
you're only here now. Like no one knows, right? What happens when you die? We can guess. We can talk about actually some cool Google stuff that happened earlier this week. But my philosophy is this, and I think I said it last time. Like the seconds that just passed, we'll never get them back, right? I feel like I'm here for the amount of time that I'm here, and I want to do anything, everything within reason, but mostly safe stuff, right? And I don't know, I just want to experience a lot of stuff. If I was offered a pizza with crickets or cockroaches, if it's part of the culture, so they're humans too, and they're not dying, I'll try it. Why not? Yeah.
No, I get that. I think that's good. Cockroaches, I'd probably draw the line.
Palmetto bugs, they're different, supposedly.
Yeah.
But do you guys like seafood?
Yeah.
Depends on the seafood.
Oh yeah, I'll eat anything.
What does it depend on, Stephen? Is it like I'll stick to my fish, standard, fine, crustaceans, bottom feeders, definitely no.
Yeah, not a big bottom feeder guy, so like I don't dislike the taste of shrimp. I don't like the texture, and I don't like the idea of them. To me, they are like the cockroach of the ocean.
That's exactly what they are.
And they're delicious.
This is why the cockroach thing. Yeah, exactly. They're so good. Oh my days!
It's a great excuse to eat really spicy cocktail sauce or butter, right? That's why I think lobster is like just an excuse to eat butter. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's good though.
Yeah. Can I have
a lot for the butter,
the garlic butter with a side of lobster?
please?
Just
$25.99.
And that's just the butter.
Do you guys, when you eat lobster, do you eat the entire lobster or do you just stick to the tail?
I haven't had lobster in a long time, and I have had the whole lobster several times.
Yeah,
but I think generally it's the tail, what you get with a steak or something.
Yeah. I had my first like whole lobster experience years ago now, but we were visiting some friends in Connecticut, and we were just we did the experience where we pulled out live lobsters from a tank, went home, boiled them, put them on the table, and it was very interesting to start cracking into other parts of the lobster. But man, It was really good. It was really good.
So lobster as a bottom feeder is okay. Shrimp, not so much. So if shrimp is a cockroach, lobster's like a rat. I mean,
I was about to say a giant one. Yeah. I have to not think about what the lobster is when I'm eating the lobster. Yeah.
No offense to any of the lobsters watching this show, by the way.
Right.
I'm sure you're all
Basically,
harmless.
he just doesn't want to see you crunching crumbs off the bottom of the ocean first and then have you cooked on his plate.
I guess I really shouldn't say no bottom feeders because I like crab. Crab's probably amongst my favorite seafoods. But again, I have to try to like not picture in my mind the living version of these little tenders of meat that I'm eating.
That's all I do. That's all I do. It's delicious. I think about the long walks it's had, watching the sunset, on which ocean, which beach it came from. No, it's about the experience, you know?
Oh, man.
So you don't think any of our listeners are vegetarians then?
Tendai, are you a Craig? I don't think Craig is.
We only have to ask two people, right?
No, I heard there is one other listener. I know somebody asked me, when are you going to do another episode? You know, when we were on the Thanksgiving break, they were like, when's the next one?
Oh, sweet.
Don't worry, we're recording it now. It was literally.
Oh, hey, are we going to try that?
Our transistor analytics are looking pretty good. So, hey.
Well, Tendai has us on repeat.
Yeah.
Just all day.
Just jamming out to the bucket.
Yeah. Love you, Tendai.
I'm curious.
Thanks for making our stats go up.
Since we were talking about seafood, what's your favorite type of fish?
Oh, man. I can never remember names of fish, but I do.
Okay.
I do like salmon. I think that's if it's good salmon, it can be really good.
Okay.
I like tuna.
Okay.
Sea bass.
Okay. Like
is
Chilean sea
also
bass?
great.
Or like...
Yeah. I don't even know where it's from. Where I have my sea bass.
Me neither. All I know is
but
the
yeah, I
Chilean
really like
one.
it. I just, there's this thing of culture of seafood in Spain, especially in the Canary Islands, because they've got access to it so readily and a good
Right.
variety. And it's cheap, which is great. It's fresh, which is great. It's really good. It's not farmed and
Right.
and then, it's like small fish or the meat's not very tasty. It is properly sea-born fish.
Yeah.
And
had a family,
yeah,
long
Got a
walks on the beach. No.
mortgage, yeah, 2
I'm trying to go
kids.
back to what Shane was saying.
And it's so, and they've been doing, you can tell they've been doing fish for hundreds of years, like as a meal, and
Right.
they've just got it down to such a fine art. It's like a little bit of salt, garlic, maybe some butter, probably not even a little bit of olive oil on the pan or something.
They just
when
wave a stick
they're
of butter over it.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of lemon or something to add some acidity.
Occasionally, yeah, maybe on the side, and just let people choose if that's what they want,
Yeah.
rather than they definitely don't go to town with cooking the fish in all sorts of flavor, because it does have a really good natural flavor, and you know what, it's so different. In the UK, fish was not like that. That's not my experience of seafood at all, and it's wild how much better it is here. And it's just so simple, and it's like, I actually enjoy cooking fish, at home. And yeah, it's amazing. I love it. I love it
How
all.
about the three like classic Italian seafoods of octopus, squid, and eel? Actually, I don't know if eel is classic in Italy, but I have seen it around there. But yeah, octopus and squid seem to be very popular. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Octopus getting like that was, again, because of the visual aspect. We were in Rome and we had this beautiful pasta dish with just a tentacle of octopus sitting on it with the little suckers all over it. And it was gorgeous, but at the same time I was looking at him.
Put it in my belly. I want to chew that.
This is pushing the boundary for me a little bit, like.
Yeah.
But it
I
was
bet
delicious.
it's deliciously rubbery.
Yeah.
We had so one of the first trips I took with Victoria went to Charleston, and she found this Spanish restaurant, and we went and tried it out, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was it octopus or squid? I think it was squid, tentacles stuffed with some sort of sausage. Delicious. We still talk about
Wow.
it. It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was like the special, that was the chef's special for the day or something. It was intense. Very flavorful. It was really good.
Well,
Is the chef special just stuffing things with sausage every time?
He was actually a crab.
Oh.
Yeah. And he was spared, like his life was spared. He would talk about all the long walks that we'd have on the beach, and they just felt so sorry for him that they was like, you know what? Why don't you just get back there and just cook for us then? So
apparently episode 11
Crying. He was
is
like, thank you.
yeah. Episode 11 here is going to be called The Pot rather than The Bucket,
The
because all
Bucket,
we're
yeah.
doing is talking about food.
hey, tis the season, right? I mean, we got the holidays and
It's the crab bucket.
the crab bucket,
The crab bucket.
the chum bucket.
Yeah. I think in the US a shrimp bucket. Isn't a shrimp bucket like a really popular
I think it's
thing
like
you
a-
order at a restaurant, right? At like Bubba Gump's, isn't it? The
Yeah.
shrimp I don't know, whatever. I'm talking on my ass at this point. What do you guys
Well-
have plans for the holidays, huh? What is Christmas in shorts and bathing suits like, Simon?
I'm going to be in London, so
Ow.
I'm going to be wrapped up.
What a waste.
Okay. What a way.
That sounds fun, actually. I've never been to UK. I'd love to go someday. Definitely want to go. It's on the bucket list.
Friday.
Orbits.com. Hang on. Next Friday. I got some stuff coming up. So I've got Christmas. We're doing, and this is funny. Victoria has a 6-year-old son. He woke up yesterday morning at 2:00 in the morning. Woke her up. She's like, I was just laying there sleeping, and he said, Mommy, I threw up. But he was covered in puke.
Oh, that is the worst.
Carson had it last Monday. He woke up at 4:00 in the morning and had thrown up all over his bathroom, I guess. And so, like, I was like, he woke up a couple hours. I'm like, just go back to bed. We'll figure it out, and we'll see how you are at school time. And this is a great way to start the holidays, right? At least the discussions of it. But I sent him to school. He was feeling better. I got a call a couple hours later from the nurse from school. Come pick him up. He's got 102 fever. So I picked him up, and he went to sleep immediately. Woke up like 5 hours later, 8:00 at night, with like 106 fever. So that's like I am of the belief the fever is the body's way to kill the virus, and you need the fever. You can't just give it medicine, but that's too high. So gave him some Tylenol.
Getting literally
that's like
dangerous.
Yeah. So and I was like, I gave him Tylenol for the fever. I'm like, if it's not better in an hour, it's a cold shower, and then if it's still not better, you're going to the hospital.
I was about to say that 106 is like ice bath territory.
That's so it went down from the Tylenol, so we were fine. And the next morning, woke up. It was a slight fever. It was a little bit. It was like 103. So I gave him another Tylenol. He was fine after that. But So
that sucks.
Little Matt, she's like, it was like the Exorcist or something. It was like all over the bed, like everywhere. I'm like, no, oh God. So they were supposed to come over today or tomorrow. We hadn't decided fully yet, but looks like they're not coming over till probably Christmas Day, I think. So we'll get them, and then Carson's birthday is the 29th. So Saturday the 28th, all of his friends are going to come over and stay the night. There's going to be like 7 15-year-old boys screaming at the top of their lungs about some character on Smash Brothers or something. I don't know what they do, but pizza and cake and lots of sugar and no bedtime. And then I get to sleep Sunday morning while they're sleeping, so that'll be nice. Man. And then last thing to follow it up is so apparently so Victoria's Russian. First of all, Christmas. Apparently she's Russian. I could tell something gave it away. Not sure if it was the accent. Christmas, first of all, is January 6th in Russia, not December 25th. Which, if you think about it, makes some sense. Christmas was kind of invented. We have reasons to celebrate Christmas, but it was declared a national holiday in like 1920 something or something like that, and whatever. But and it's not even like the official day. No one knows the birth of Christ and blah blah blah. So they don't really celebrate, quote unquote, Christmas Day. They will go to church. They'll do a little mass if you're religious or whatever. But New Year's is a big deal. She's like, we do presents, we do salads, and this is like famous Russian salads, like lots, not just like our salads, right? Lettuce and tomatoes. Like, how many combinations of lettuce and tomatoes can you do? So we've been stocking up on some foods that she can't wait to prepare for New Year's. She doesn't drink, but she's like, I will have a glass of champagne or two on New Year's. So
I thought you were going to say vodka. Now I don't know if she's Russian.
That's what I keep saying. My dad is the same thing. He's like, how much vodka do you drink though? She's like, I don't. She has nothing against it. It's just she doesn't like hangovers, and tipsy is okay, but
does anyone like hangovers?
No.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
I freaking hate it.
I explained alcohol once to Carson when he was like 6 or 7, and I was like, you're really, really happy and it feels good for the moment, but the next day it just kind of sucks. He's like, so is it kind of like stealing joy from tomorrow? I'm like,
Yes.
you're so
exactly
profound.
right.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So next Friday, I'm a little busy preparing for the birthday. Maybe the 3rd. Maybe I'll come out there at the following Friday.
I'll still be there.
I find the salad tradition at New Year's for Russians really interesting because you must think that in Russia, you're not really growing a whole lot of...
It's not that kind of salad. So she made a salad once for me, and I was like, I don't know about this. So she takes so much time to prepare everything in a good way. Like I didn't mean that like she's slow. No, she's very meticulous with chopping, dicing up vegetables and stuff like that. So this salad
plant-based.
was no. So this one was, it had potatoes in it and it had like can of corn, and it had mayonnaise, but then it had like crab meat and what was the other thing? Oh my God, she's gonna kill me.
Maybe
'cause I forget.
peppers.
It was so good.
Pepper.
No, it didn't. I don't. I think she wanted to, but I don't eat bell pepper. I can't eat bell peppers. So one of the only things I can't eat.
That's
I
so
don't like 'em.
good.
No. Anyway, to each their own. To eat their own.
Okay. Well, all I was going with that is I thought that it was going to be plant-based.
No, yeah,
and that
no,
would make it like really special because in Russia you can't really be growing things into the winter time.
But no,
so
they don't do that.
Preparing and like having the stores for that is like, a really special thing, right? It's something you had to like hold on to from probably summer, fall crop season. And then at New Year's, it's this big celebration of, feast of something that was difficult to hold on to for that and celebrate. So
They don't do that.
but
I don't know.
apparently
That's all fabricated.
That's
in
not
the
the
how
last
essence of
deeply
it.
you
2
thought
minutes.
about that.
One
it
of
kind
them
of reminds me of the Feast of Seven Fishes in Italian culture.
I've heard of
just
that, but I'm not familiar with it.
yeah, so it's just
It's probably a
is that
feast with
like-
7 different kind of fish.
Yeah, it's like just a huge meal. I think normally I should get my wife in here. She's actually home today. I think Christmas Eve or something like that. God, I hope her family doesn't listen to this episode or I'm going to be cast out as the in-law. But anyways, it's just a big feast of, all sorts of seafoods because that's so big in the Italian and like Sicilian culture.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Sure.
but yeah, like all of these different crabs and the octopus and stuff you were talking about just reminded me of that. So when are we going to stop talking
Do
about
the
food in this
intro?
episode? Because I just had breakfast and
Basically,
now
me
I'm getting
too.
hungry.
She made me a apple pie for my birthday last night. So I went in and helped take care of Matt. He had the fever, and I was able to work from her place for a while, which is nice. And she's like, "Oh, I got to make you your birthday present." And I'm like, "All right, let's do it." So, and it was apple pie, but it was more I would call it like an apple cake, I guess. It was more like a cake, but with pieces of apples kind of stirred up inside of it. She's like, "No, this is very traditional." I'm like, "If it just had some whipped cream, maybe some cinnamon." She's like, "No." I'm like, "All right." So it's about like keeping the tradition of what it is. And I'm like, but I'm like addicted to, I shouldn't say addicted to. I haven't had whipped cream since like last year. So it's not an addiction, but boy, you get a can of that stuff around me and it's gone. I don't care.
You can still be addicted to something without consuming it.
All right. Well, can you though? I'm an
If
addict.
you're thinking
I'm
about
an
it in
addict.
these ways, like if you just like get lost for a moment, you look to the corner and you're just daydreaming about cream. It's like I think you're addicted to cream.
I mean, Ready Whip is okay. I'll make my own. Just give me, some sugar and some vanilla. So, oh man, don't get me going. Anyway, we didn't have any.
Well,
on the,
now I know what birthday gift I'm getting you since I missed your birthday. I'm just going to send
Box
you
of
a
cream.
case of
Oh,
cream.
don't give me a case. I will murder you.
By the way, to all
I
of our
can't stop
listeners-
myself. I'll devour it in one sitting, and then I will die. So don't give me a case.
When you do
Listeners.
that though, please
Oh.
can you video it?
Yeah.
You'll get a video of me sending it back to Steven. I can't.
No.
I'll give up all this hard work I've done all year No way.
Lame.
Yeah.
But I want to take a minute to just mention Shane had a happy birthday this week, and then Simon also has one coming up. So leave us a comment wishing them a happy birthday. I think this will be we won't have another episode before Simon's birthday on the 24th. So
Interesting.
bam.
We're within a week of each other. Yeah. When's yours, Stephen? January.
5 years or whatever.
I'm January 15th.
You know what we should do? Don't say anything, Simon. Ask the audience, who do they think is older?
Oh.
Me or Stephen?
Yeah. I'm starting to get a few wisdom whiskers, but I'm not fully there yet. So
Come on, stop playing. He just got his learner's permit.
It's the crow pie in my eye.
oh man.
We're still talking about food.
Do you
Crow
know,
pie.
I've got to talk about food a little bit more because
Let's
you
go.
mentioned the Russian salad. And that's a big deal here as well. It was super weird. Like, why is that a thing here? I don't even know.
For New Year's or Christmas or any time or
Anytime.
what? Yeah.
All the restaurants here that do like traditional Spanish food also do Russian salad. And they literally call it Russian salad.
Really?
Well, yeah. And it's
So what is
potato,
it?
mayonnaise, maybe tuna, maybe crab or some other. It could be prawns, like shrimp.
Wow.
That's
and
fascinating.
Peppers, and they often do it with like egg as well. So you've got
Eggs
mayonnaise
are in there,
and
yep.
eggs, and they'll crumble like the hard boiled yolk of an egg across the top, and all sorts of stuff.
Delicious,
and they
right?
make it look really pretty and everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this looks. I could make a snowman out of this mixture, you know.
Pack it in there.
It's,
There's
it's
another one.
really good. A good one though is amazing. It's so tasty.
There's another one that I'm interested in. I don't know how I'm excited to share the experience, you know, for her to show these things to me. The translation is herring under a fur coat. So it's herring. I forget. There's 3 layers. Herring and mayonnaise and mashed potatoes. All
They
kind of
the
like in a
mashed potato thing, don't they?
Oh yeah. Potatoes go with everything. That's like, I need that on her shirt. She should make that shirt. Potatoes go with everything. It's like
Make a
anytime I
shirt
make
out of
anything, she's
potato.
like, oh, we need potatoes. She just like, that's a good idea. There's potato skins on the whole, and it's like carved out with a vinyl cutter. Like, potatoes go with everything. Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. It is interesting. And I'm learning a lot.
I'm so hungry.
And I'm, let's see. I forget what I'm at.
I can't say I've ever had herring, so no idea what that would be like.
What? Oh, I grew up with herring.
Yeah, no.
Was he younger than you or older than you?
We were the same age. And now he's a
Oh.
cook at a Spanish restaurant.
Yeah.
138 days on Duolingo. Getting there.
Nice.
It's really not.
How do you say, where is the bathroom? Putting you on the spot.
I don't know how to say bathroom. Oh, wait. Oh, I do know this. Oh, I forgot it. Good day.
We'll check back in another
driving nuts.
138 days.
Let me ask
and see
ChatGPT.
what you got. Oh, man.
He's going to be bursting for the loo by then.
Yeah. So you guys, are you buying up Bitcoin? I'm making a huge left turn here. I'm done with food.
If I were gonna buy Bitcoin, I would just sell it to buy some more herring, I think. What is it up to? I had a bunch, man. It's like one of those. I'm so pissed at myself. I had a bunch when it was like $1,300. So long ago. You know, the guy with the pizza, like the 2 pizza.
Yeah.
Like I would have done that. But like,
that's so
here's
funny.
10 million of them or something.
Yeah.
What's it up to
Hindsight's
now?
2020.
Is it over 100K?
Yeah, it had peaked over that. I don't know if it's over that right this second, but
No.
I admit I asked that question because I have been very ignorant, and I didn't realize that there's like a proposed bill in the U.S. government for them to acquire 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years. And that is...
For what?
Send me a link. I want to read this because I've heard other things.
I think it depends which conspiracy theory you listen to. But it's everything from, the U.S. government trying to stay as like a leader in the global financial value holding stance, where China and Russia and some other major economies are trying to move away from the US dollar as a value store. And you've got other stuff where it's like, the crypto kind of industry was one of the largest donors to the 2024 election. And so they are just trying to get stuff passed that will help boost their particular industry. Sounds very reasonable to me, I have to admit. Or likely, I guess I should say. Not necessarily reasonable. And then there's another one where the U.S. government is sitting on a huge amount of gold that they basically can't do anything with. And so they're trying to figure out this kind of what I think is silly, convoluted, if not just fishy way of releasing gold certificates, where you would be able to, acquire like the theoretical ownership of part of that gold that's sitting, and
Like
then
an
do things.
NFT for gold.
Kind of. And I think it's really funny because not that long ago that was called dollars. Right? I mean, like literally the US dollar was a direct correlation to, gold that like the government was sitting on. That was how it all
was in the
worked. And then-
60s.
right. And Nixon or whoever, we changed to fiat currency and blah, blah, blah.
JFK, I think. Maybe it was
Anyways,
Nixon.
why the U.S. government was wanting to do it, let's not worry about that too much. It's just the fact that, I didn't realize that there was even a proposed bill to do that. And apparently, that amongst the kind of pro-crypto stance that Trump seems to have. I'm not trying to get political here, just a lot of these things are hypothetically going to move the crypto market, obviously in a bullish way if these things pass, probably in a bearish way if they do not at this point. And so, yeah, it's just kind of really interesting how I think I don't know if it's interesting, but almost a very ironic outcome of this, and the idea of the government acquiring that much of the Bitcoin supply, right? Because it's capped at what, 21-ish million Bitcoin?
19.
That's where we currently are. I think the maximum mineable is just
So
over
19.9 in existence. Yeah, you're right. And 1,090,000 ish left to be mined.
So if they did this, right, after the span of 5 years and acquiring it, and the U.S. government's already sitting on 200 and something thousand Bitcoin, they'd have, 6-7% of the total supply. And it's very ironic that, like, Bitcoin was literally created as a response to the poor management of the financial landscape and government's involvement with it and the '08 crash. And now we're going to be back in a place where these governments are holding on to a massive amount of this crypto asset. And he just
I
went in the
agree to an
completely wrong
extent with
direction.
that, but I also disagree. Like the whole thing about crypto, it's decentralized. Everything is trackable. Good luck doing that with a dollar bill. I don't care what serial number you put on it, but where is it? Who had it? Where did it come from? Who had it before them, etc. So there's this traceability that inevitably comes with cryptocurrency that doesn't matter if the government has all of it, you can see where you can trace it through where it's been and where,
Yeah. That's not really what people are talking about, though. The whole thing is control. So the whole point of like this Bitcoin stuff is that, the traceability is great, but because of its decentralized nature, it wasn't one entity, one organization that had control over it, like governments do with their nation's currency. But if you start to get into this point where, probably states are holding on to massive amounts of it, now they are starting to have control of it again. It'd be like, just think about it hypothetically, if any government, anybody had that much of that asset. It's the same way whenever you have, really large stockholders in publicly traded companies. If they have all of that, and then all of a sudden that you hear that they're going to be selling off, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins in that case, or shares in my other stock market analogy, like that is huge market impact. And so it, again, is kind of like this matter of control and how much influence a very small number of people have over this thing that the masses are using. And so it's just ironic that Bitcoin was created to get away from that. And now we're getting ourselves back into a situation where it might still end up being kind of that way.
Have you guys done any development work with smart contracts, ERC-20, 721s, anything like this?
Ooh, no, that sounds interesting though. Please keep going.
So there's a guy that I've worked with a number of years, Justin, in the Bahamas. Hey, Justin. I don't know if he listens to this. Hey, anyway. And he came to me. He does a lot of like government work in the Bahamas. Not working for he has just his own software company, but they're very slow to, kind of everything, but they're very slow adopting any technology. So like, and it's really difficult down there too, because like there's a couple banks that operate that have somewhat like a digital solution for web. So e-commerce platforms are very hard to kind of work with in the Bahamas. And you would think there's such a large like tourist sector that they would try to make it less difficult, I guess. And not many people doing that. So it's like, well, there's a lot of potential here. So he's been doing stuff with that and with leverage, and he's a developer as well. But he's always surprised when I just do like some, what I'm like, this is very simple stuff. He's like, I didn't know you could do that, after like you've been developing 10 years too, Anyway, he came to me one day and he was like, hey, I was approached by this company and it's a very popular NFT. I don't think I should disclose what it is. I could tell you guys offline. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, Tendai. And they were like, hey, can you do Web3 stuff? And I'm like, nope. He's like, could you figure it out? I'm like, give me a couple hours. So I just like dove into some documentation I found somewhere, figured out how to wire it up with Vue, and within a couple hours, I'm like, I could figure this out. He's like, you think you could get this whole thing to work by Friday? And I'm like, sure, let's do it. He's like, you get 5% of the whole, if this thing sells. And so it's like, so with NFTs, if you're familiar, then you understand.
Here I come.
Right. Well, this is before Bolt. Unfortunately, this is 2020 or 21. Man. And so it was like, 5% of the sale of this, whatever it is. And it's like, if I make anything, that's cool. If not, whatever, I'm learning something new. So with NFT drops, they will like push it and push and push it leading up to the date and the time that it's going live, quote unquote. And, all the marketing around it or whatever. For whatever reason, this one had good marketing. And I pushed it live and like, all right, it's live, it's ready to go. And literally 5 minutes later, they sold out. And so my take from that was about 40 grand in 5 minutes that I made. I was like, holy shit, I should learn more about this. So we We did another one or two that weren't as successful, but still had some, profit. And then I started getting into smart contracts, which is, well, you have to kind of look into it, but it's you publish a contract to the blockchain and it lives there. Now you have this address for this contract. You can define methods on it. There's playgrounds so that you can do these in like test environments and test your code against them. And so I spent probably the better part of a year or so working on some ERC-20s, which are just like coins that you could just like, there's a limited supply and you can buy them with other coins, and controlling all of that, seeing who owns them, and like any method that you can think that you would want to see, you can just figure out how to do it. It's not a very difficult language. It's really, really similar to JavaScript. And actually there's some like libraries built around interfacing with these contracts with JavaScript. And like you can, like when something happens, you can have the contract, you can have these listeners, these bots basically listening to a contract for when a certain action happens or a certain trigger happens. And now it's regular web stuff that you can get push notifications or get a Slack notification or whatever, or just hit a webhook and do something in your application. So then we went and we were like, let's make our own NFT. And so we did, this is funny. I should wear my hoodie. Oh, I've got it right here. Hang on.
Coming to you live from.
We're gonna cut this bit. We're gonna cut the bit just before you said, "Oh, I've got a hoodie," and we're gonna edit it back, and he's just gonna be wearing a different hoodie. It's gonna be amazing.
So I don't know if you can see the back here or not. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It's a hedgehog.
All right. It's a manatee. So there's like, it's mighty, man. So we were like, we had these designers and we're like, we figured out there's like, we used Python for it, but basically we had them design like 30 different elements, or like 5 different elements and like 30 variations of each element. So like a hat, and I can send links. We'll put links, because they're still like out there. I still have a bunch of them.
Still shilling it.
We were pretty hardcore. So like the day that we released this, I got COVID. There's 10,000 Mighty Manatees. I got COVID and I went like in the bed and I hit the button. So it's really interesting, like to publish the contract to the blockchain, it costs money to publish it. And gas, which is like the transaction fee, was very high. So like I use a command line to publish this contract to the blockchain, and it cost me $2,000. And I was like, I've never spent $2,000 from the command line before. That was an interesting.
FTP some code to a server.
Well, not FTP, but kind of. I mean,
basically.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, yeah. So we sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there and sat there, and we dropped the price after a week, and I'm like dying. I think I lost 30 pounds in 2 weeks just from not eating. I was just on the, it was actually a really hard time for us. There was a lot of other things going on, but so what's interesting with NFTs is that once they're like we wanted to make our money back at least, and I think we did. I think we kind of broke even on this. We kept dropping the price until eventually it was free. Well, somebody from the apes, what are they called? The big one where they're, like Kobe Bryant had one for like $2 million or whatever. They were huge. Like they were talking about on Jimmy Kimmel and stuff. Anyway,
no idea.
One of them like tweeted about us and they're like, check out these guys. And I think it became kind of cultish. So we dropped the price to free, and they sat there still for like another week. And then this guy texted or tweeted about us, and they went immediately. And now everybody is talking about them, and like this whole like what was it? There's like a whole like greeting that now exists in the NFT world that came from Mighty Manatees. I forget what it is now, but like became this whole thing, and I was like, wow, I'm dying here, but I was part of something, So what's interesting is like any of the sales, any of the aftermarket, OpenSea.io, I think it is, or .com. That's a place where if you like, they're already sold, but you can buy them. People can list them for sale. And I, as the creator of the original contract, can say we get 10% of any post-market sales or post sales. And so we had that at 10% for a while, and people were selling them for like 2 ETH, I think was the highest, which at the time ETH was like $3,800 or something. So, you know, we're getting, and they were trading back and forth several times. So we did make some money back on that. And that was a very interesting experience. They're still out there. Check out Mighty Manatees. I took the website down. We even created like our own ERC20 called Algae. So like Bitcoin, it was our own token, right? And so like if you had so many of them, or I forget what all the different parameters were, but if whatever criteria was, you could trade or just say, hey, check my wallet and I get these so many coins or so many Algae tokens. And then those tokens we created, that's what it was, yeah. We created the merchandise, and you could trade the algae for the merchandise. So I've got like Mighty Manatees mugs and hoodies, and there was a couple other little things that I had, little tchotchkes and I actually, you had to be US based because I'm not shipping to Algeria or something. Algeria.
Nice pun.
Yeah, thanks. And there was like, 30 people or something that got these hoodies, and they spent a lot of money on it. And so it was, my honor, privilege, whatever. Too bad I didn't know Victoria at the time, but, I went with Printful. It cost me a lot more than it would have, but we got it done. There was another bigger, Meraki. So, there's also this thing called artblocks.io. And you can go, and this is like the, what's it called? It's the, what's that Warren Buffett art museum thingy? Come on, you guys.
Don't know.
You guys are
Sorry.
Horrible hosts. Anyway, Warren Buffett, like the museum.
You're chatting
anyway,
with very uninformed lads here.
You know who Warren Buffett is?
Cultured
Yes, know who Warren Buffett is.
Anyway, so they sell like these Rothschilds or whatever, these like $20 million paintings, like on auction all the time. So This is like the digital world of that is artblocks.io. And so what's interesting about NFTs, they're generative. They don't exist. The art doesn't exist. Not all NFTs. I should clarify, not all NFTs. We built an algorithm to mimic artblocks.io. Artblocks is, you could take like a p5.js or 3JS or whatever, and when you buy an NFT with the code that is written generally, it creates this unique hash. It's just a unique hash that is assigned to the NFT in your wallet. And so you take this hash and you apply it against your JavaScript code, and it will generate the same picture every time, but it's unique to that code. So it's a generative thing. So like the art doesn't actually exist until you buy it, right?
You can say,
once it's
I own
minted,
the token that generates
you own the
this.
token that generates that piece. Exactly. And then like the code behind it you can define the rarity of different elements inside of that art piece. So you can actually make really cool things with it. So that was on the Ethereum blockchain. Gas was crazy expensive. Like I said, $2,000 to just publish a single smart contract. Gas has gone way down since then. So it's not such a big deal now. We were the first ones to create basically art blocks, but on the Polygon blockchain, which was like 1,000th of the price for gas. So people that were like spending 5 Ethereum at $4,000 an Ethereum were spending another like $10,000 just in transaction fees, just to mint it. So this was our way of like, hey, why you could do the same thing over here. And that was not crazy successful. There's still actually some things going on with that. It still is in existence. It still is out there. MRAKI.io. We actually had someone design the site, but Jason Beggs did he did all the blade markup and made it look nice and pretty for us, which is nice.
Cool.
So that was there's some cool things there. There's some cool things that you can do just to summarize, I think that NFTs are maybe a waste of what the capability is. I think that we as humans are too early to really recognize the power that this kind of thing could have. I've often thought about like medical records or something should be NFT or part of a smart contract, that you and only you can manipulate the data that's on this, or a signed provider, or et cetera, et cetera. Some things can be publicly accessible. Others, you need a certain token or key or whatever to be able to access some of that data. That would keep me from having to fill out the same paper form every time I go to a doctor, even if it's the same doctor or a different, you know what I mean? Because of all the HIPAA, and I just don't think that we are ready to accept that. Yeah, I think some people are barely getting off the black and white TVs, you know. So, yeah, it's cool. It's the technology is very, very, very cool, and the things that you can do with it with. You know, you get like a Chrome or Arc extension to like sign into your wallet. And now with that enabled in your browser, you go to a website, it will detect that. That's where Web3 comes in. And now that we've detected that, you can say, oh, this is everything that's in your wallet. Because you have this token in your wallet, you can access this information through this website. And I think the mechanisms there are interesting enough to developers should look into. It's very easy language.
Huh.
Especially with bolt.new.
So if we go back to the US buying a ton of Bitcoin thing, I don't know if that's really like control, more so much as influence. You said, Stephen, I think is the right word. And for me, it's kind of like wanting influence over the fluctuation of the price. Like it's been very volatile, you know, and not just Bitcoin, but all the other coins that are kind of, you know, Bitcoin's the first one. When Bitcoin moves, the others kind of move, not always, but mostly the same, to the same degree, effectively as well, in the same direction. So they're all kind of connected to each other just by, you know, guilty by association. And I think some stabilizing force is required, because there's nothing to stop them just getting wildly swinging from one side to the other. And that obviously causes a lot of pain in both directions. So I can understand that being as like a stabilizing force. But in that inherently comes, as you could like, this shift of power. But I don't think it's necessarily power to control like the blockchain itself. You know, it's just this sort of ability to influence the overall value, which is kind of interesting. We'll see if that pans out. But then, like, so I got into it, you know, when Bitcoin first kind of took off, I'll say properly. When was that? When it kind of went up towards 50K. Was it 2021? Beginning of 2021, It started to get lots of media attention, and I was like, maybe just like grab a little bit of one or the other, or diversify it and just see what happens, and not worry too much about it. And I watched it quite closely, and I was like, and it then went down, and then it went up, and then it went wild, and then it went really down, and now it's like creeping back up again. But I kind of feel like until it's got some of that stabilizing thing, it's not really worth banking on. I mean, people who were in a position to mine some Bitcoin back in the day because they'd taken the time to sort of figure this technology out, if they've held on to it, and I'm sure there's quite a few people who have, you know, and they either acquired it for very little, or it didn't take them very much to mine it, you know, they're minted on paper, and great, good for them.
Yeah.
It's like, but it still doesn't translate to real value today, because where people's perception of value lies is still in the, what's the word for fiat currencies, you know. But then it makes me think about like what is a fiat currency? You know, you said Shane, you said a dollar isn't really traceable and all of this kind of thing. But then most of the money that we see, like that's circulating around the system, isn't a literal dollar either. Like there's no serial numbers on those dollars. There's no tracing. It's just the numbers go down here and they go up over there, and hopefully it equates to the same thing so that some auditor can go, oh yeah, it looks like that transaction is that transaction. And that's kind of the problem with that world, is that it's completely opaque, you know. And I think people talk about cash being an issue. Cash is an issue, but the problem really with money in the long term is that it's centralized to a few organizations, effectively governments, banks, and insurance companies and whoever else, that have paid this concept of money that's not real money, and it's not backed by anything either of real value. It's like gold, it used to be, but it's not anymore. And so they can kind of make up whatever they want, and that's what's happened. And you know, in some countries it goes wild and they have crazy inflation, and then in other countries they sort of say, guys, we need to just like control how much of this we actually do so that it doesn't go nuts. And they just sort of agree between themselves. It's like, let's, you know, not do. And I think the technology, the concept of things like Bitcoin could be net good for everybody, because it could shift this. Like, it's no longer an agreement between pals and buddies, you know, deciding sort of the fate of an economy. It's now provably out in the open that the value kind of chain is all there for everybody to see, which could be good. And I can see them wanting to like partly get in on that and just make sure it kind of still goes their way. You know, this is very pessimistic, actually, conspiracy theory, but also just kind of maybe wanting to even make sure that it doesn't take over the current way of doing things, you know. But there have been some really interesting stories of like people using currencies, you know, their own like homegrown currencies in small communities and these kinds of things. So, you know, it's a sort of grassroots campaign. I can see eventually just naturally taking over. Oh, everybody does it this way because it's really easy and the value proposition's really clear. And the cost of doing it isn't really expensive. Like the reason that all of our money isn't in cash is because it costs more money to print and produce the physical cash in many cases than it is to actually just treat it as numbers on a screen. So, you know, it doesn't make economic sense to physically produce loads and loads of actual money.
Just don't assume that it's free or necessarily even cheap to do digital currencies, though.
No, it's not. There is an inherent cost there. But, you know, it's definitely this idea of like $2,000 gas fees or whatever is completely fabricated. And I don't know enough about it, but I really fail to understand like who gets that money. Why is it that price? And, you know, like when you can do a lot of technically the things that are happening, you know, like writing to a database effectively, much, much more cheaply elsewhere. And even if you talk about distributed systems that are constantly talking to each other and cross-checking to prove that they've all got the latest and greatest information about the truth of, you know, transactions that have happened, it still doesn't cost anywhere near that much to ensure that that kind of thing can happen, because we have systems that do that without that specific technology being used. And the businesses that own and run those don't pay that much money to do that on a per transaction basis. So it's kind of like it's shrouded for me in a lot of these like smoky, you know, who's behind this, who gets that money.
Those aren't fabricated. They're calculated, first of all. So it's not like somebody is like you got a lever and
Yeah.
anywhere in the system.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, I haven't seen the actual kind of what's the basis for these gas prices, right? And the fact is, it is a business at the end of the day. Somebody wants to make a business out of this. And nobody makes a business where you give things away at cost price, because that's not how you run an operation. So at some level, somebody has to be able to set that price. It's not just like, oh yeah, the system tells us what its price is.
No, it is. It goes by how much traffic there is on the blockchain. If there's a lot of traffic happening simultaneously, look, in order for any calculation to be part of a transaction to be entered into the blockchain, there's a series of calculations that have to be performed to prove its authenticity. There's only so many computers that are doing this. There may be millions or even billions of them doing it, but there's still a limited amount. If traffic increases on the chain, those resources are going to get drained. So you can choose when you make a transaction, I want to prioritize this. I'll pay more for gas to do it. Or no, if it took 3 days before the transaction actually goes through, that's okay, because it's just, whatever, for whatever reason. So if you're needing to, especially with these like NFT grabs or stuff like that, where people are trying to, like, there's only so many here. If the transaction fails, even though I've got all the money to get it right now because the chain is busy at the moment, I don't get this item that I want for whatever reason, because I think it's an investment, it's going to go up in value, whatever it is. So I'll pay more for that transaction to be prioritized on the chain for it to go through. The people are making more money. They get more of that transaction they get more of the fees associated with that, I guess. They get paid in tokens, first of all. They're not getting paid cash. They're getting paid in these tokens that also fluctuates up and down. Based on how many of those calculations they were able to contribute towards, right? So there's nothing there. There's nobody there that's moving this up and down other than the traffic that's on the chain, which is a calculation. It's just...
Right. It's very close to a pure supply and demand market.
If it truly is that, then the ultimate outcome is for everybody to become a transaction host, basically, because then you could write your own transactions, and essentially it should only cost you the cost of running the
You can't
system.
perform them on your own computer. You can't say I want to make a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, but run it on my own computer. It's part of the whole network. And the software, in order to participate in running these calculations on your computer, is you have an address on the blockchain. You're saying I'm able to perform these, but it is equally dispersed, or there's some lottery or whatever it is that says that you can perform some of this calculation. No single computer, I don't think, ever has performed an entire calculation for a single transaction. You do parts and pieces of it.
Oh, really?
It's decentralized. There's no central anything, any place in this. You can create your own network to do this, maybe, but
that even still suggests to me that you should be able to join that chain of servers. Anyone should be able to join, and what that suggests is that then you can distribute the cost. Like the fee should be distributed against all of the people all the servers that had a part in calculating the whatever to make the transaction legit on the ledger. Yeah, so it divides that up to everybody. So
not everybody.
Everybody who was involved in that transaction and calculating it,
that's
verifying
true.
It and whatever.
Everybody that's involved in that transaction gets a part relative to the amount of the transaction that they calculated.
So then the ultimate outcome is that everybody does that. It is available to do that process.
Well, yeah, but then you're getting something,
what happens is that unless the gas fees, whatever the gas fees are actually based on, like you said, they can fluctuate as well. So if whatever they're based on stays the same, then all of the people getting involved in transactions, unless that's limited, get less. And then if you start to limit factors, if you start to say things like the gas price can't fluctuate and the number of people involved in a transaction can't fluctuate, then you have a system that is closed off, like banks, because that's exactly what the banks and the government
neither one of those are closed off. You can do it. You could get an old Linux computer now, or do it on your MacBook and wire it up to Ethereum and say
my point is that the people who are doing that right now, they are making, to a certain extent, money off that process. And for them to see continued value in the investment of doing it, they need it to stay closed off, or to not go above a certain level of number of people who can do this.
I disagree.
Well, no,
they would want that, but they can't control that. There's a, what's it called? Go ahead and say. I'll tell you. There's a stock that is. They are Bitcoin miners. They're a publicly traded stock. I can buy call options or put options in this stock. They have warehouses full of these graphic processors that are just mining Bitcoin. Not mining Bitcoin, because you can, but they do more of the transactional stuff, right? That's how you're mining. That's how you're mining most of this anyway. But it's never going to reach zero. It's never going to. So, their whole company is based on how much money are they getting in, how much money is going out, because there's a lot of money going out to run these warehouses full of processors and to buy the all of the equipment to run it and stuff. So
yeah, they wouldn't be doing it at that scale if they couldn't get the money from it. That's the thing. And if the system's truly open, then eventually what will happen is they won't get enough money to cover those costs.
Maybe.
Which means then they'll stop doing it, and it just kind of gets to a self-implosion.
But then somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah.
So if all these huge companies stop, now all these other people make them, then they'll get back into it. So it's like this.
But
you know what I mean?
If somebody's doing it, but it still has to appreciate in value over time, otherwise they won't continue doing it, because the system around them, the world that they live in, the food that they want to eat, the places they want to go, the fuel they want to use in their vehicles, all goes up in value over time, generally speaking. Like, it costs them more to do it, which means that this ultimately has to translate to that, and it has to go up in a similar way. Otherwise, the system falls over. So then you say, well, the gas prices have to go up. So somebody has to, the technology cost technically goes down over time, right? Because the capital upfront spent is now amortized over the years of ownership, right? So the cost actually technically is going down.
Well,
but somebody is having to say, well, no, this needs to match economic inflation levels, or at least something similar to that, in order for people who are in the system to understand, get value from the system that they can translate into things that actually match with the world around them. And I think that's fundamentally it leaks to this place where somebody has to be able to. I'm not saying whether it's physically capable of doing it right now, or whether it was ever intended technologically to be able to do this, but somebody has to be able to push the lever and make the value change. It's not just going to happen naturally.
Not sure what to say about that.
This is a very complicated topic, and
there's other aspects to all that too. Like you're saying, the cost, the capital up front is amortized. Well, no, because graphic cards blow up and servers go down, and they need to, new faster ones come out where that can increase. And now they also have a value added to the company itself, where I bought all these, $20 million worth of graphics cards, and my company is worth more. And, there's other factors involved in that. Gas cannot be controlled. It can be, there are ways, and there have been attempts to kind of corral that, but it cannot be controlled. So yeah, if it could be, it'd be let's everybody get some old beat up Linux computers and get these things on and that's what a lot of people are doing. A lot of people are making money, and they say, look, my electric bill was averaging this last year, and now it's this year. I spent $1,000 on my, or whatever it is, it's usually more than that, but my garage miner
GPU.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have friends that do, and actually the guy Justin, he mined like 7,000 Dogecoins back in the day. I don't know what the value is now, but when it was starting to go up, he gave me some, and he's like, I just want to ride it out with you, man. I'm like, all right, let's do it. But it was, the concept there is cool. I can plug in a computer, I can run a script that's online and participate in this thing, and it's depositing tokens into an account, and those tokens are increasing in value. And they have. Unarguably, they've gone up, depending on if you started yesterday, maybe not, but if you started any time before this last 6 months, they've gone up a lot. So the value has gone up. People are saying that's what they keep. There's a lot of hype, and I think a lot of the hype is trying to drive the market. But I think that people they pick up on that pretty quickly. So it's like, oh, Bitcoin, 100,000. It's going to be 1 million by next year. Like, I've heard that so many times, because it went from 30 to 60,000 in a day or whatever. That doesn't mean necessarily, obviously, but no, like if I'm mining less and less and less coins, fewer and fewer coins, because gas has gone down, it's actually stabilized, and there's a lot of people that want it to stabilize so that there are more transactions, because if it's stabilized and it's cheap to run these transactions, more transactions will happen. If I've already built the infrastructure some of these companies are huge companies, many millions of dollars worth of equipment. They're getting a percentage of the transactions that are out there. They can count on this. There's dashboards I'm sure they've got where they can say, this is how much we're averaging year over year, week over week, whatever it is. And the value is going up of those coins that they're mining. So, they might have mined back in the day, hypothetically, 600 coins per transaction when it was worth $1, for 600 coins. Now they're getting far less, but the value of that is more. And so you can build a company based on that. Where it ends up, I don't know, because it's going to take how many years, Stephen, maybe until all of the Bitcoin are actually mined, because that's a calculation. It's 20 years or 50 years or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know right off the top of my head.
Because it's like
that's a really big part of this whole discussion you guys have been having, is that it is a finite resource.
It is, and that's part of the whole thing, right? Eventually, but I think it's hundreds of years before. Which is, a company, you're going to build a company, should be here in a couple hundred years. Ask Coca-Cola. Ideally, you would want that, but nothing guarantees it.
I've got a finite resource. This sweetie wrapper I found in my pocket. It's the only one of its kind. This isn't going to be, worth infinite amounts of money just because I say it's the only one. Or even if it turned out that there was only 21 million of them, and for whatever reason, people burned them up. It's like, that doesn't make something appreciate in value on its own.
Adopting it globally, that's part of the whole, that's part of the biggest thing. Right. So like, just because you said gold has no inherent value, you can use it. It's a better conductor of electricity than every other metal found on Earth, whatever it is.
It does.
But we make it,
right? Gold does have inherent value. Like, there is not just the technical things that you can do with it either, but it's the physicality of it. The fact that gold at a certain temperature and pressure is like, yeah, no, I'm not saying that, but that's in contrast to something like Bitcoin, or these other things which are completely ethereal. Completely. There is nothing real about them.
Yeah. I think you guys we should probably wrap up this part of the conversation here.
Let's go back to food, man. How much food would you buy if you had
We
a
know
Bitcoin?
a lot more about our food than we do. I do think that the blockchain technology is really cool. And that is where the value of Bitcoin and a lot of those things truly lie. And you can make a lot of analogies between Bitcoin in particular, some of the other cryptocurrencies, with gold. Because at the end of the day, gold is a like stable physical asset, which is good. It doesn't like deteriorate. And it has real world applications, right? It can be used for utility. That is sort of its beyond just being this very abstract hypothetical value store. It has real material value to industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is like a reason to mine it and to hold it. Bitcoin is very similar. It's a finite resource. It lasts forever, right? In the digital speak. And instead of its value being that it can be used in electrical equipment or something like that, its value is the blockchain technology and this ability to transact concepts on its network. Okay? It's the same reason that, like, why is Visa valuable?
Ooh.
Visa is valuable because they created the network that allowed near instantaneous verification that I, holding this little piece of plastic, have money available to me while I'm physically inside of this store. That's kind of the direction that Ethereum has gone, right?
I don't think they're valuable just because they created that, because there are other businesses that have also created that aren't as valuable as them. Their value comes in their ability to sit on the bridge and take the toll. Like, so it's in as much as...
But the underlying bridge is the network. And it's the same for Bitcoin.
Yeah, they've created the bridge. And they've said, like, here's this bridge. It's really useful. But they've said, you have to come through us to use it.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way I think about it is the same for Bitcoin. The network and the things that you can do with the blockchain that is valuable is the reason Bitcoin has some level of kind of, still abstract, but value. And whenever you wrap all of this together, it is a self-equalizing system that I believe is really brilliant. Super, super, super cool. And I don't really know where else I was going to go with that, but that's kind of the way that I really think about it. And I mean, it even goes back to what Shane was saying earlier with, like, think of how valuable it would be if at some point your medical history was very well protected, yet technically stored on, I'm not saying Bitcoin, but just imagine like this blockchain type technology. And it's like, that doesn't actually have any value. I can't take that to a factory and make a new toy with it. But at the same time, it actually has value to me, right? In this sort of just different way other than a physical concept.
I think so Bitcoin maybe is again
much the same, right? The fact that the Bitcoin network can do what it can now do is the reason that it has value, and that's the reason that people are putting compute resource onto the network to perform these transactions because they get a little bit of the cut, right? That's the toll.
Yep.
And round and around it goes.
Yeah, so the only reason that that's of value to you, maybe in this scenario, like hypothetical scenario, is because you understand, at least to some level, what's going on underneath, and you have the opportunity maybe to get involved in that process. So the average Joe who's got his medical documents on the blockchain isn't going to really appreciate any difference between that and his GP just having a better system for accessing his medical records. And when he goes to hospital, that they have his medical records too, and they're verifiably his medical records. You know, it's no. If you think like technologically, the technology doesn't matter. Like the solution is the valuable thing to the end user. So average Joe cares if the solution is there. He doesn't care how it got there or exactly
and how much it
it's
costs to
implemented.
get there.
Well, yeah, I mean, he probably doesn't think about that consciously, but it will affect how he thinks about the world and all these other things.
Let me propose this, because I heard this a very long time ago with like, what is the value of Bitcoin in the blockchain? And I was presented with this example that I think is like one of the best representations of it that I've heard to date. So it's very simple. Real estate acquisition. Okay. This is something, at least in the United States. I don't really know if it's the same everywhere. But in the United States, whenever you go to buy a piece of property, this is like the perfect use of this type of a technology for a couple of reasons. One, I don't actually really care if the transaction takes 15 minutes to complete or something like that. So that's just sort of like out of the way, right? A prerequisite, that's fine. But number two is that before I would acquire a piece of property, I have to pay a company to research who actually owns that piece of property. And there is literal like insurance that is a part of the process of this company verifying that I'm about to buy a piece of property from who says owns the property. And that 200 years ago, there wasn't some deed that was done on a piece of leather that actually put the ownership of this piece of property into someone else's hands. And so now after I acquire it, they come out of the woodwork and say, actually, you didn't buy that from the real owner of this piece of property. I own it because of this piece of paper that's 200 years old. There's actually a lot of money in that. I mean, this is a very expensive thing to do. And you want to do it, especially as the cost of your property is going up. Blockchain and having this infallible history of the transfer of ownership of these assets is the perfect representation of what this technology is amazing for. Especially whenever you do start talking about very expensive assets, and then two, assets that are distributed amongst multiple owners. So now it gets even more sticky. But you can represent all of that perfectly in a, what's the opposite of ephemeral? A never-ending, a permanent digital solution. And I just loved that example because
it's good.
It exactly, like, I have impacted that, right? Like, I have bought property. I had to pay companies to do this research and verify that I'm actually buying it from the right person, and I'm not going to have someone come out of the woodwork claiming that they were actually the owner. And then once I hold the deed, it's really mine, you know? And like, I had to pay people to do this when, if it had just been a complete history of my current address on the blockchain and who owns it, I could have done all of that for pennies on the dollar at the equivalent. So
I think that anybody that's really looking at this more intelligently is realizing that it's more than just, not you, Simon. I'm not saying. Now I am.
I'm dumb.
So these companies that are doing this, they're more investing into that. They're more investing, like they probably have, and I don't know this, I'm just hypothesizing. I would have. Well, this is where it's at now, but all right, and I just looked it up. 2140 is the year that the last Bitcoin will be mined. Because it's fewer and fewer every year, or every whatever it is, half-life or whatever it's called, halving. I would look at the technology behind it as the long-term future of it. I've heard about the real estate. Anytime you want to verify ownership, authenticity of anything, event tickets, concert tickets,
artwork,
artwork, any collectible, anything collectible, really. You know what I mean? Like, then there's like there's a question of like associating a physical item with an address or a transaction ID or something like that. But that's that can be overcome. There's all this like, there's so many, and that's just like off the top of my head and what I can think of now. Ask ChatGPT like for some other great examples. He'll give you 30 more or 50 or whatever you ask for. And that's
title
just
of
with
a car.
Yeah,
Literally
any
a piece of paper still.
any ownership,
Yep.
a birth certificate. I mean, who do you
Yep.
belong to? You know, who are your parents? You know, passports. You know, like. And that's just with where our current technology, like what we are using these days to live, right? Like just like, you know, what's going around these days. 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, who knows what will be important to us then? But you could still use the same idea, the same like fundamental technology. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The challenge there for me around that is that you can do this same kinds of thing without that specific technology.
How?
What you're talking about really fundamentally, I don't know, I'm going to skip over a lot of what it enables, but is a shared database, right? You're saying, and shared proof, right? Or shared understanding
of data integrity,
of proof, right? So you're saying, because all of these systems speak to each other and they all verifiably agree on this information, then it can be used in that way. That doesn't need a blockchain to do that. It just needs interconnected systems and for a standard approach to do it, you know, to be agreed upon by the people who own those systems and the people who respect the owners of those systems. The difference here to me, and what I think is more interesting about the technology, is that it is distributed. And the distribution and this kind of no controller concept for distributing the data has birthed this kind of technology, or, you know, essentially it's Git for data across distributed systems, right? Where you hash the hash plus the data and you have this chain. And so, you know, there's like this verifiable history to everything. And people can, then you can say, you can put your trust in this, and that there's not just like one owner who can come in and disrupt the whole data set either. Like that's just becoming increasingly difficult to do because you have to have more and more ownership of the actual systems that verify the data, which as it becomes more distributed, that becomes harder. So, you know,
that's
it's
a whole
like,
other way we could go with this conversation, because there actually was a time when they were getting scared that a small number of companies were controlling too much of the compute that was going into the transactions, and so they actually could manipulate.
Well, it's actually happened that some networks on other chains have manipulated it, and like, but not to my knowledge on blockchain, on Bitcoin. But Bitcoin, So anyway, the point there for me is that the technology itself and like kind of where we've got to is very good. And it's great for some specific use cases. There might be many use cases like ticketing, ownership, birth certificates, medical records, whatever. There's a whole range of things that it could be really, really useful for. The one, unfortunately, that we've sort of just got stuck on is we use it as a way to fake value and for a bunch of people to potentially make some money, which is like, yeah, that's okay. And I do understand in a capitalist society, that's kind of where we end up going first. But that's not where it should be. You know, like,
I agree.
If the value of it, the real long-term value to humanity in that technology lies elsewhere, let's get there as quickly as we can, because that's the thing that's going to bring like real change.
I agree.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the money to support that end game has to be sort of made first in order to get adoption.
Well, this is the thing, it's not even to
sucks.
Support that, because people who make that money don't then go and go, we're going to change the world now that we're multi-millionaires. You know, they just go, I'm going to go buy this island. Bye.
Well, it's probably what has largely kept Bitcoin to be, it's funny, the thing like we didn't talk about as its value from proof of ownership is literally the fundamental concept of money. how much money do you have? How do you prove that you had that much? And that is what Bitcoin is being used for right now.
I think deep down,
Largely.
I'm a proponent for blockchain. I'm huge on the technology. I am kicking myself in the ass for not having invested more into I think, and everybody can say that, even if you've already made a bunch of money on
How
it,
do you
right?
kick
Say
yourself
the same
in
thing
the
about
ass?
Apple in 2000. I mean, it's just
I have a clone.
hindsight's 2020.
NFT clone.
He does my bidding, or she. Do we have time? Probably not. I was going to talk about the multiverse that Google discovered. We'll talk about that next time. Maybe.
Yeah.
Teaser. So I'm huge on the technology, and deep down on all my workings over the last 4-ish years, I guess now that I've been working with stuff, and I haven't, last year maybe, but that's been kind of my whole thing. It's like if you work intimately enough with and understanding governments, the powers that be, money, and this technology emerging, you can kind of see a lot of what's happening now is televised media pump and dump mentality that I despise.
Yeah.
I think that's your there's a verse in the Bible, throwing pearls before swine, which is, giving something really great to people that are just not really seeing the value of it. And I think over time that can fade. I don't know if it will. Maybe, hopefully it does. But in the meantime, go make your millions if you can, let's look, it's 5 days before Christmas. Let's see next year where Bitcoin is at. Let me see what the price is right now. Bitcoin price.
I like how we've had this massive discussion off of me basically joking and
97,000.
asking if you guys were buying.
Did you know that Shane was into it before?
No.
I didn't know.
Surprise.
Where I actually wanted to go with that conversation is more of like, does it kind of make sense to buy it? It's something that I've been contemplating, and I'm
I think we're just about to get round to that original conversation thread.
I know. Yeah, no,
Here's
this
the thing.
episode is getting way too long at this point, but I'm a very rational investor. I look at the whole picture. I look at where my risk is allocated and kind of, managing all of that on as reasonable of a level as I possibly can. And so I hear about these people that are in what's happening with the cryptocurrencies. And I've always stayed out of it because as a small business owner, I'm already exposed to a tremendous amount of risk through my own business. And so it would be like telling somebody that has a big 401k that you're invested into a single stock. And most people would agree that's a bad idea. But as a small business owner, that is effectively what I have. And so I'm already exposed to so much risk that all of our other investments are trying to go in the opposite direction to try to, regress back to something that's a little bit more sane. So that's why we have stayed out of crypto so much. But it's still really fascinating because you do feel like this is something that could appreciate in value over time. Are you missing out on something? And then my fundamental question is just well, man, because of how volatile it is, how risky it is, how much money are you willing to try to put into it? And it still feels so risky to me that if you were to say I'm going to put a handful of grand or something into it, and then it does go up in value 5 or 10 times, so then you do end up with $20,000 or $30,000. That's great, but you're not going to retire on that, right? You kind of need to be thinking about much bigger numbers, and it's just way too risky to be there.
Part of a portfolio.
And so
the other thing is on your portfolio of other investments, you wouldn't put in 3 to 5k and just leave it there and expect in 20 years that it's going to be worth $500,000,
right,
or more. That just doesn't happen either. So I think what you're going to see over time that it becomes like a more normal investment, and it's just another asset that it just fluctuates a lot more right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
And
that's the asterisk.
And the good for that is like if you get it on a downswing and you hold out for an upswing, you could make short term some quick buck.
Right.
And that's what a
Right.
lot of people are doing, and that's why it's fluctuating.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, where I'm kind of at is like, I've got a little bit, I'll hold on to this and see where it goes. I think where personally I should be, if I was treating this like other assets, is I keep getting a little bit of it over time, like I do with my other assets, and just
Kind of
know
dollar
that,
cost averaging. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Long term, it's going to be worth more than the average of what I paid for it. So
Maybe.
I think that's where it's going to, yeah, maybe. I do think that's where it's going to go. And at the
No.
moment, the average is that it's a much better investment than stocks. But that's right now.
Maybe.
At
Right
any
before this-
time in
Go
the
ahead,
last
Shane.
10 years, you would have had the same feelings, whether it was at $5,000 a Bitcoin or $20,000 a Bitcoin or 50,000. Now it's at 100,000 and you look back and you're like, damn it, I should have. Blah. It's just like any other investment, right? You feel you
I was
got
about
the
to say-
same emotions. Everything else is the same way.
You
You don't
have said
know
the
what it's
same
going to be.
thing about
Yeah.
Netflix, Nvidia,
Yep.
anything that's exploded
Anything.
in the last 20 years. And you're like,
Yep.
man, if I had gotten in when Netflix was $2 a share, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, okay.
It does also
I think
have
the
this
craziest-
like shock factor just because the numbers look so big. You know, you go, one Bitcoin is $100,000 and people go,
Yeah.
one, what? And you're like, yeah, but one Bitcoin is like 400 million shards or whatever. You know, it's like, it can be subdivided
Yeah.
into much smaller things. And, you know, when you talk about shares in Netflix and maybe one share might be $150 or something, just like dwarfs it, you know, because of that. I don't even know what the right expression is, but just the visual comparison is just way off. Like people are not looking at it in comparing
Yeah.
it in the same way, really.
But what I think the more important thing, because I mean, there are technically shares of things you could buy on the stock market that are really high. Like there's a Berkshire Hathaway that's, $100,000 or something a share. I think the really big difference is that Bitcoin represented this opportunity for literally anybody to get in on such a ground floor that it would have been like you could have walked down the street when Apple was still in a garage and said, hey, Steve, hey, Wozniak, I want 1% of your company. And as long as I put a little bit of compute time into it, like they had to give it to me. And so you got in at such the, you hear these, amazing stories of, the pizza delivery guy that bought 10 Bitcoin back, eons ago, what feels like. And whenever you have compared that it was literally worth like fractions of a dollar and now it's 100, like it has literally multiplied. What is that? 1 million times. That's what's super, super, super crazy. But I don't think that that's going to necessarily, like, that's not going to happen again at this point. Even if the entire world's, well, no, I think
Don't
even if the
say
entire
that.
world's
Don't say that.
money
That's a
I think
death
they're
trap.
listening to you, Stephen, because as you said those words, the numbers just went up.
No, I mean, do the math. I'm pretty sure if the entire world's supply of money were immediately put into Bitcoin, you're not getting that kind of a jump anymore. Because it's already worth, the market cap of Bitcoin, where its price currently is what, like $2 trillion? And
So
the
what do you think the
total-
highest it's going to be worth?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do the math really quick. I think, like, I don't quote me on this, but on orders of magnitude, which is what we
I'm gonna
really care
put-
about.
on the
I'm gonna-
record.
Total,
Yeah.
this is on the record. The total global supply of money right now in the world is in the hundreds of trillions.
Are you asking
And
or
so-
telling us?
I'm pretty sure that it is. Call it $500 trillion. That's probably nowhere close to truly being right, but I don't think I'm off by multiple zeros, which is all that we care about with this point I'm trying to make. That means that Bitcoin right this moment, if it were to suddenly become the global supply of money, every single concept of money was suddenly Bitcoin. And so instead of it being worth 2 trillion because of 21 million Bitcoin, it were worth 500 trillion. You've gone up by only a factor of 200. Not like literally a million, you know? So at that point, I mean, yeah, a single Bitcoin.
I'm doing the math here. There's
Would be
$80 trillion on Earth right now.
Okay, so I mean, it's, yeah, so, you know, if you were to,
So it's
like,
80 trillion
the
divided
maximum
by...
it would kind of go up is 40 times. Not
But 80 trillion, that sounds way too small. Are you sure that's not
It does-
just
that
the
does
US?
sound really small, but-
That's
sounds
what
maybe
Google
just-
says, and it had reasons. But now I
I
can't
mean,
type
the U.S.
into
debt
Chrome.
Gemini.
alone is 32 trillion or something. So I don't know, but hey, I mean, yeah, but that actually kind of does help prove my point a little bit on an order of magnitude, right? We're just saying like the maximum amount with the total amount of money supply in the world today, which of course will always continue to go up slowly. You're still looking at like you will never more than 40x your money with Bitcoin. So now it feels just more like something that would trade on the New York Stock Exchange, right? Where even if I got in really early on one of these like groundbreaking companies, a recent one that made me think of this is like the cannabis industry. And there were all of these little companies that were popping up, like the penny stocks and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, 40xing your money, but there's so much risk. Anyways, I just think you're not going to be at this point where you could go and buy $5,000 worth of Bitcoin and 20 years from now retire because it's worth 10 million. Those
I don't
days
think-
are over.
No,
Those
I
days are
don't-
totally
yeah.
over.
No, but
So-
but $5,000 worth at one point when it was $5,000 Bitcoin, you had one Bitcoin. Now you have $100,000, and 20 years from now, right? That could be worth $5 million, right?
Yeah. But like I'm saying I missed that boat. So
So if you bought $100,000 worth right now, which is one Bitcoin, and you waited 20 years and it's worth $5 million, you could.
yeah, but
So
like,
it's all
it's
in
not gonna
relation.
get there.
It's all relative. You know what I'm saying? 10 years ago, or whenever it was $5,000 for one Bitcoin. Fast forward 20 years, if that's $5 million for one Bitcoin, right?
But it
yeah,
won't.
one Bitcoin. You don't
But
think
it won't.
Bitcoin will ever hit $5 million?
No.
Oh, I do. Absolutely, I do.
Because
Why wouldn't you?
But Shane, the math that we just did, if the entire global supply of money, there's no more concept of a US dollar, of a British pound, a euro, all of it was just Bitcoin, that would be 40 times what it's worth today. 100,000
Yeah.
times 40 is only 4 million. And I don't think that in 20 years we will see the day when every concept of government money is out the window and it's all Bitcoin. So no, I don't think that you're going to get anywhere close to that.
We'll see.
Did that math make sense?
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know.
about.
I'm
don't
going
know.
to check it afterwards.
That's what I'm thinking. It's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's like got a market cap like 2 trillion today. You just said that the global supply is 80 trillion. That's 1/40th. So if it were to all become Bitcoin, it would go up 40 times. Now that's instantaneously. I'm not factoring inflation over the next 20 years, right? So I guess, but it's still, I don't think we're going to see the day when Bitcoin represents.
And it all
Even
depends, too, on how much you
20
need to retire 20 years from now.
You're also not taking into consideration the
Yeah.
economic impact that everybody suddenly switching to a single currency would have. And we've got examples of that happening in the past with the euro. And it's not always net good. So
Right.
it, you know, if that hypothetical scenario did happen, Bitcoin's value might actually depreciate quite a bit.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, got it.
Nice.
All right. Let's wrap it up there because we're,
Hey, look, if
we've
you
got
like
a long
lobster
conversation now.
or crabs
We should have just
or
stuck
shrimp,
with food.
I'm so
or
hungry.
Bitcoin,
There could have been an hour here. I could have been chatting about pizza, but instead we
Oh
somehow
my
got this
God.
Bitcoin rabbit hole.
2 weeks over on that.
God damn.
Lobster
And then,
and blockchain. We should get food on the blockchain. That's what we need to do. Restaurant ownership. I can prove that.
I can prove that I Uber Eats you that meal.
I
No refunds, no takebacks.
can
No
do that already
receipts.
with the Venmo emojis.
How much money
Yeah.
globally? How much money could we save if we stopped printing receipts, paper receipts? Cost of paper and ink alone, just on receipts daily. That'd be an interesting question, actually. Anyway,
I've got one of the Randall Munro, XKCD. He's done, I think, a couple of books now, but one of them is like how to do anything, and it's really, really interesting because he sort of goes into all the details of like, can you jump over a mountain? Like a high jump over a mountain, and it's like, well, yeah, technically, if you get enough updraft, maybe you could. It's like, I bet he's got something that would let you figure out like how much does the cost of printing receipts worldwide every day amount to. You could work it out.
yeah.
There might even be an XKCD about that already.
Why don't we
That'd be
flip this
cool.
around on its head? And if you don't want to hear us talk about the blockchain anymore or Bitcoin, like and subscribe.
Don't listen to us because it'll come back up. I'm
So
sure.
if we get this huge upswing in subscribers, then we know this is not something we need to talk about again. Thank God.
Steven,
I just feel bad for all of the actual blockchain crypto experts out there that we're
I'm
just
not going to listen
completely
to this.
talking out of our ass with so much of this. It's cringe content for them, but maybe it's entertaining for Tendai. Who knows? He'll let us know, I'm sure.
and maybe they've got yachts with
Yeah.
apes on the side, and they're not listening to us at all.
No, definitely not.
You know what? For our holiday special, which I guess this is now, we're gonna have Steven close this out. Surprise!
Do you want to see if I can do it like Shane?
No, I want you to do it all on your
Oh,
own.
something original?
This is a special. This is what makes it special.
Hey, everybody. Please help my little children eat tonight by liking and following this podcast. It's the only way it'll happen. Look. I want to get some crazy hand movements in here. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, we want to have another conversation in the new year, 2025. Here we come. I don't have anything else to say. I'm horrible at this type of stuff. Everybody knows what to do. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow us on the podcast, streaming service of your choice. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.